Hi guys, welcome back to my miniature things. My name is Saeed. So in my personal life, I love to go out and have fun at the bars and dance at the clubs, but my dolls don't have the same opportunity as me. So I was thinking today we can make a bar/club scene so the dolls have a place to go to have fun. Not to mention that a few of you guys have also requested a bar scene, so this will tie in perfectly with that, but we'll get a little bit extra with the club. I did do a little bit of shopping on Temu for this. I bought a few glasses and like bottles and stuff like that because we're gonna need a lot of those since we are making a bar. So without further ado, let's start making a dance club with a bar for our dolls. So let's start with our floor. I start by joining two pieces of foam board that measure 20 inches by 30 inches on the side that measures 30 inches with a piece of duct tape. I then flipped it over and covered the entire thing in a black glossy contact paper. Now originally I thought this was gonna be the perfect size for our bar/club, but upon further inspection, now that I'm looking at it, it's too small. By the way, you guys, if my voice sounds a little bit funny in this video, it's just because I feel a little bit under the weather today, but I'm still well enough to craft, so hallelujah. Now back to the floor being a little bit too small, let's make an extension for it. So I start by covering another sheet of foam board that measures 20 inches by 30 inches in my black contact paper that I found on Amazon, and I rolled the contact paper around one of the 30-inch sides. I then cut another piece that measures 30 inches by 1.5 inches, and I cover it in my black contact paper, and I attach it right under the 30-inch side that we rolled earlier. I then flip it over and I cut another piece that measures 1.5 inches by 30 inches and I place it on the edge on the other side. Cut another 1.5 inch strip that measures about 19 inches long and I place it on the side. And I also repeated it for the other side. Then cut another strip that is 1.5 by 30 inches and we place it right across the middle. And then we finish it off with two more strips at 1.5 by 15 inches each. And then I place one on this side and the other on this side so that we create an X. And you definitely don't want to skip this step, you guys, because if you do, when you flip it over and you place dolls and furniture and stuff on here, it's gonna start bowing and breaking, but look at this, it is as strong as an ox. But now we are finished with the extension for our floor and it is a little bit elevated, so I'm gonna place it over here to the side. And I was thinking maybe we can do the bar area over here on this side, maybe the dance floor down here and the VIP area over on this side. But I think we are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, you guys. Let's start making some walls first. And you guys, I was thinking to put a fish tank in this club, and not just any fish tank, a shark tank. Like, how cool would that be? So let's start building that now. Let's put that in the back wall on the left. I'm gonna use a piece of plexiglass that I found on Amazon for the glass for my shark tank. It measures 12 inches down by 16 inches across. So I measure and mark where I want my window cut out to be on a piece of foam board. It measures 10 inches down by 14 inches across, so that when I place my plexiglass over it, I have about an inch overlap on each side that I can use to stick the plexiglass in place. And my cutout is about 3 inches from either side and about 9 inches from the bottom. I then cut it out and I covered it in some contact paper that again I found on Amazon. Cover a few 1-inch strips of foam board and gold craft paper, and I use them to create a frame around our tank. Cut some 1/2-inch strips of my gold craft paper and I place it over my edges to clean it up a bit. And now that I have all sides of my opening cleaned up, I can add my plexiglass to the back. And I just stick it on there using some duct tape in the back. Okay, so now that we have our wall with the opening for our shark tank, let's start making the inside of our shark tank. Now for the background of the tank, I want to use this picture that I found on Google and I printed it out at Office Depot. It measures about 18 inches this way and about 24 inches this way. So I stuck it to a piece of foam board and then I cut it down into pieces. The big piece measures 13 inches by 18 inches. The two pieces on the sides measure 3 inches by 13 inches. And this piece at the bottom measures 3 inches by 17.5 inches. Now let's place this piece right on the bottom and then the other two pieces on the side. So you should end up with a 3-sided box that's covered with our printable on all sides. And then to decorate it a little bit more, I have all these seaweed and seashells that I have left over from the DIY mermaid video. This video right here, if you haven't seen that video, check it out. It was one of my favorites. I also have a few of these stones that I think blend in perfectly with these stones in the background. So I'm just gonna use a few of these just to create a more of a 3D element to our shark tank. Add in our seashells and seaweed. And I don't know if you guys remember this little guy. He was also in the mermaid video. But remember, I spray painted him gold and then I didn't really like the way he came out. So I used acetone to try to take off the gold paint, but it also took off his original paint. But I was thinking to use him down here, oopsies, and I think it kind of works. I'm now gonna take this entire thing and I'm going to hot glue it right to the back of our tank opening. And you guys, oh my God, look at how friggin' cute this is. Oh my God, I am obsessed. Now I know that I did say that this was gonna be a shark tank. So let's get some sharks up in there. I found these at my local dollar store. I also showcased these in my mermaid video, but I don't think we ended up using them. So I cut a piece of foam board down to 18.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And I'm gonna use some of these lights that I found at Dollar Tree. You press them and they turn on. And they are peel and sticks, so you turn them over and you just peel off the back. And I'm just gonna stick it right in the middle of my piece. I added 2 more for extra lighting. And then I used some fishing line to hang my shark right where I want it. And to do this, I tie the fishing line around the shark's tail. I then mark where I want the shark to hang. And I take something pointy and I poke a hole. And then I poke a second hole. Hopefully that's where I want my shark to be. I'm just kind of guessing here. Now, I know that you guys can't really see this, but this is the other end of the string that we tied to the shark's tail. I'm now going to take that and insert it to the underside of one of my holes that I just poked. I then pull it through the other side and then pass it through the other hole. And now I'm going to take that piece and wrap it around the front of the shark so that he can hang. And then I added a piece of duct tape over the pieces of string just so that they don't move around. And now let's place them into our tank. You guys, oh my God, we have a shark tank with lights that actually work. Well, hold on, let me turn off the lights so we can see what it looks like. Ah! Oh my God! Oh my God, it looks so good. I'm not supposed to be screaming like that because I am losing my voice, but you guys, oh my God, it looks so good. Now for our side wall over there on the left, I was thinking that we can bring back this wall. We used this one in our bathroom video. And if we place it right over here, we get a finished side wall. And I know that there are some imperfections from where I ran the lights for the bathroom video, but don't worry, we're gonna clean that up. By the way, this wall measures 30 inches wide by 30 inches tall, and the wallpaper I got from Amazon. Now let's move on to the bar. So let's start off with the piece in the back of the bar that holds all the drinks and stuff. So I start by cutting a black piece of foam board down to 29 inches by 6.5 inches. I then make 2 rectangular cutouts in the middle, about 13.5 inches away from either side and about 1/2 inch away from each other. And they measure about 4.5 inches tall by 2.5 inches wide. And because the insides of my foam board is white, I'm gonna use some black craft paper to clean it up a bit. Like this, and you see how you can see the white edges of the black craft paper on this side? Well, it's completely not a big deal, but I'm just gonna take my black marker and go in and clean that up like I did on that side because I am completely psycho. There, doesn't that look so much better? Next, let's cut a piece of foam board down to 3 inches by 5 inches. And I cover it in my gold craft paper on the front and on the sides all the way around. Cut out a 2 inch by 4 inch piece from the middle, which leaves you with a frame that measures 1/2 inch on all sides. Clean up the inside edges with some gold craft paper. Let's now add a piece of clear acrylic that measures 2 3/4 by 4 3/4 to the back. Cut a 1/4 inch strip of foam board and cover it in my gold craft paper all the way around. And I place it right on the side to create a handle, to create a little door, so now we can fit this right over our opening. And you guys, for everyone that's been asking me, make working doors, today's your day, honey. We are making working doors. This is gonna be a mini fridge with double working doors, and unfortunately for me, I used pink foam board, so let me find a way to cover this up. So I make a gold cutout to fit right over that pink piece, so that when the dolls open the door, you don't see pink on the inside. Now to make these working doors, I'm gonna use these tiny little hinges that I found on Temu, and they also come with these tiny little screws. So cute. So I attach my hinges to the side of my opening, and they're about 2.5 inches apart, and I basically just use some crazy glue to hold them in place, and then I put the screws in there. We are now going to take our door, open our hinges, and place the door exactly where we want it. Close the hinge back onto the door, and then you are going to mark where you want to put your screws. And I just use something pointy to make little holes right on my marking, just to make it easier for the screws to go in. I then added in my screws, and voila, we have a working mini freezer door. By the way, you guys, if anybody knows how to get rid of glue strings on clear acrylic or clear packaging, please let me know, because it drives me insane. I then repeated it for the other side, giving us 2 working doors for the outside of our mini fridge. Now let's work on the inside. That's kind of fun. I debated whether I should do black for the inside of the fridge or white, but I think I'm gonna go with black. So this piece measures 6.5 by 6.5, and this piece measures 6.5 by 3 inches, and I'm just gonna join them together on the side. I then place a 3/4 inch strip that measures about 6.5 inches wide right on the bottom, another 3/4 inch strip right to the front, and then another side piece that measures 3 by 6.5 inches right on the other side. And now we can add in the bottom, which measures 2 3/4 by 6.5 inches right on top of those 3/4 inch strips that we placed in there earlier. You guys don't actually have to place this 3/4 inch strip in here. I just do it so that when I put my bottom in, it's level. I then cut 4 1/4-inch strips of foam board. They measure about 2 inches long. And I'm just going to place these on the side. And I place 2 on either side, and they measure about 1 3/4 inches apart. Cut 2 clear pieces of acrylic. They measure about 2 1/4 by 6 1/2. And we can slide them right over those 1/4-inch pieces that we placed in there. Like this. And now we have the finished inside of our mini fridge. We can now place the outside, which is the piece with our doors, right over the inside, which is the piece that we just made. And I think it looks amazing. Now let's finish up the rest of it. Cut 2 pieces of foam board down to 3 1/2 by 6 1/2. Place one of them on the end of the piece that we just made. Cut and cover a 1-inch strip of foam board in gold craft paper. It measures about 6 1/2 inches long. And I'm just going to place it right over the seam so we can cover up the white foam board. I then repeated it for the other side, and I make 2 more of my gold 1 1/2 by 6-inch strips. I measure about 8 1/4 inches across, and I place one, and I place the other one on the other side of the fridge. Let's now cut a gold piece of craft paper down to 3 inches by 4 1/2 inches. Cut out the middle just like we did for the fridge door so that we have 1/2 inch going all the way around, and place it on a piece of foam board that measures 3 inches by 4 1/2 inches. Use your gold cutout to cut a piece that measures 1 inches by 3 inches and place it in the middle. Trim the sides in gold craft paper. Add a little handle to the front. This one I got on Amazon, giving us a fancy little cupboard door that we can now place in the front of our bar. And before you get too excited, no, they are not going to be working doors. I'm just going to place them right over here on the left because these doors over here, you guys, this was enough for today. Now, you do know how to make working doors that open and close. If you do want to do that for the rest of your cupboards, be my guest. But I will not be doing that in this video because there's just not enough time. I then repeated all the steps to make a couple more doors so that I can finish the front of the back of our bar. Now let's add a top to this so that we can move on. I cut 2 pieces of foam board that measure 4 inches by 30 inches and I join them together. Clean up my edges with gold craft paper. Let's now add one of our handy dandy Dollar Tree lights right to the middle of it so that when we place it on the top of our counter, we not only get a back piece to our bar with a mini fridge with doors that open and close, but it also lights up! Oh my god, you guys, look at how friggin' cute. I'm obsessed. Oh my goodness. You guys, oh my god, I am so obsessed with this. This looks so good, so classy, so bougie. The black and the gold and the lights, oh my god, it's so fancy. This video is definitely not for those people that have been leaving comments down in my comment section saying that I use too much gold and I need to start using more earthy, like wooden texture. This is a high-class club, okay, honey? So if you don't want all the glitz and the glam and the shine of the gold, you can talk to the hand. But now let's move on to the top of the bar where I want to make some shelving units so that we can store some bottles and some glasses and stuff like that. So there are a couple things that I do want to use in my shelving unit. These acrylic mirrors that I found on Amazon and these LED lights that I found at 5 and Below. This is what they look like right out of the packaging. They do plug into regular adapters. So they use electricity and not batteries, which is always a plus for me. So I cut a piece of foam board down to 11 inches tall. And as for the width, you guys, I can't compute how wide it's going to be. I'm not sure if it's because I'm under the weather right now, but my brain can't handle it. So we're just going to build it and I'll let you know how wide it is in like 2 or 3 minutes. But I covered the top of it in black contact paper. If you have black foam board, you don't have to do this. You can just use black foam board. I am, however, going to use my black foam board for the sides. This piece measures 2 inches by 11 inches. Add one of my Amazon acrylic mirrors right to the side against the corner. Add another black strip of foam board that measures 1 3/4 by 11 inches to the side of that. Okay, I lied. This piece is actually 8 inches tall instead of 11 inches. I completely forgot that we have to leave room for the lighting up here. I then repeated that a couple more times to get 3 sections and I cut off the excess, giving me a back piece that is actually 22.5 inches wide. Remember I was saying I couldn't figure it out. It's 22.5 inches wide. So your 2 side pieces are 11 inches tall by 2 inches deep and the 2 middle pieces are 8 inches tall by 1 3/4 inches deep. And the mirrors were 8 inches by 8 inches, but you can see the corners are rounded, so I had to cut off a little bit of either side so that I can get square corners, so the mirrors ended up being 7 1/4 by 8 inches. I then added my shelves to it just like we did for the mini fridge, but I got a bunch of these bottles to stock our shelves, but they're a little bit heavy, so my clear acrylic shelves ended up bowing. So I used the pieces that I cut off from the sides of my mirrors. They're about 1/4 inch wide, and I used them right on the bottom of every shelf just to give them a little bit more strength, and now the bottles can stand on there and it won't bow. Here is a close-up look of the 1/4 inch strips under the shelves to make them a little bit stronger. And here it is on top of our bar. It looks so cute, but let's make a piece that goes in front of it that makes it look even cuter. So I cut a piece of foam board down to 11 inches by 23 inches, and then I made a few markings with my pen, and this is a little bit hard to see because it's black foam board, but I measured about 1 inch away from the edge and I drew a line from the top all the way down to the bottom. And then I measured 7¼ inches in, and I drew another line from top to bottom. And then I measured 1 inch away from that line, and I drew another line top to bottom. And then I repeated all of that on the other side, just inverted. Next, I measured 7½ inches from the bottom, and I made another line going all the way across my 23-inch piece. Now let's concentrate on the line that we just drew, but only the portion between this line and this line. I'm gonna take a bowl from the kitchen and place the edge of it right up against that line that measures 7½ inches from the bottom. And I'm gonna make sure that it's in the middle between this line right here and that line over there. And then I'm gonna take my pen and I'm gonna use it to draw a curve all the way across. Okay, so this is kind of what I ended up with, and I just repeated it for all 3 segments, and now I'm gonna cut on these lines. Let me show you. Like this, it should end up being 3 different arches. We can use our gold craft paper to make some cutouts to add to the front to clean it up a bit. Let's now glue it to the front of our shells. Let's now add in our lighting, and I'm just going to place it right in the top right there and drop it in like that. Place the other one on the other side. And we have ourselves a bar with working lights, you guys. Ah! And look, they even blink, making it even more clubby. They do come with these cool little remotes, so you can actually change the colors of them, and you can actually change the way that they flash. You guys, I was so excited about the lights, I completely forgot about the top. So I cut a piece of foam board down to 2¾ by 24 inches, and I cover the sides in my gold craft paper, and I just place it right on the top. And you guys, the top piece, I am not going to glue in place just so that I can access the lights whenever I need to. Now that we're finished with the back of the bar, let's start making the actual bar. You know, the part where the customers walk up and order drinks. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 7¼ inches by 26 inches. And then I covered it in my contact paper that I used to cover the walls just so we can tie it in a bit. Then I cut my side piece, and to get this, basically I just drew a rectangle. This side measures 6 inches by 4 inches. And then I added another little rectangle to the top corner. This measures 1¼ inches by 1 inch. And I cut 4 of those, cover one of them in our contact paper, and now we can join it to the side of the front of our bar on the side that measures 7¼ inches. I then repeated it for the other side, and then I placed the other 2 on the inside in the middle. Since our bar is so long, we're definitely going to need those for support. I then repeated all the steps that we used to make this bottom part right here to make another one, but this one measures 6 inches tall by 26 inches wide. And instead of doing the fridge in the middle, I just carried over the door, so now we have 3 sets of cupboard doors. I'm now going to take this piece and attach it to this piece just like this, lining it up on either side. So by now you should have a piece that looks like this. Cut a piece that measures 3¾ by 26 inches and place it right on the top. Cut a 1-inch strip that measures 26 inches long, and we can place it right back here. And add some more of our gold 1-inch strips. They measure about 7¼ inches to amp it up a bit. And for the top of the bar, I covered a piece that measures 1¾ by 28 inches in this gold craft paper all the way around, and then I just placed it right on the top. I also want to make like a little shelf going across the entire bar so the dolls have a place to put their drinks when they're sitting at the bar. So I cut a piece down to 1¼ by 27½ inches, and I run my gold craft paper on the side, and I just place it right under there. So it not only serves a purpose, but it also adds some dimension to our bar. And you guys, don't forget to clean up your edges with craft paper, because those little details really take your project to another level. So I think we are done with the bottom part of the front of the bar. So this is the front, and this is the back. Now let's make the top part up here, like where the glasses and stuff goes. So let's start with a piece that measures 1½ inches by 22 inches, and I covered the side in my gold craft paper. I then cut a strip of plexiglass that measures 1 inch by 3½ inches. You can also use clear packaging if you like. Measure over 2 inches from this edge and stick it on there. I then measure 1/4 inch over, and I stick another piece of plexiglass with the same measurements right next to it. I then repeated it a few more times, going all the way across until I got 2 inches left over here. Actually, I ended up having 3 inches left over here, so I had to cut one of those inches off. So now my piece actually measures 21 inches instead of 22 inches. But I ended up using 14 1-inch strips of plexiglass going all the way across. I then cut another strip that measures 1½ inches by 21 inches, covered the side of it in my gold craft paper, and I placed it right on top of this piece that we just made. Cut a piece that measures 2 inches by 3½ inches, and we're just gonna place that right on the side of the piece that we just made, making sure that our extra 2 inches of foam board is on the side with the plexiglass. And I do the same thing for the other side. And you guys, I'm so sorry if you guys can hear that helicopter. There's like a police raid or something going on outside. I don't know, but there's a police helicopter like circling my neighborhood for like the last like 20 minutes. So hopefully I don't die. And now I'm gonna add a piece that measures 2 inches by 21.5 inches right to the back of this piece, lining it up on the sides and on the bottom. Then over here on the side where we have this little gap, I'm gonna cut a piece that's 2 inches by 2 inches, and I'm just gonna stick it right in there, lining it up flush with the bottom. Then let's place a piece that measures 1.5 inches by 2 inches right next to it on the side, lining it up next to our clear acrylic and making sure that it's flush with the bottom. And then to close it off, let's add a piece that measures 2.25 inches by 2 inches right to the front. I repeated the same process for the other corner, and then I cut a piece that measures 4 inches by 22 inches, and I place it right on the top, lining it up with the corners in the back. I added some gold 1-inch strips of foam board to the front of it just so it matches the bottom of the bar. And you guys, I went a little bit nuts trimming this thing in gold craft paper all the way around, even the bottom of it, just so you can't see any of the edges of the foam board. And then I cut 2 5/8 wooden dowels down to about 11 inches and I painted them black. And now I'm gonna stick these in these holes that we made earlier. And I did it on both sides. And I kind of want to use some of these Five Below lights again, you guys. So I'm just gonna place them on the underside of this piece. I ended up adding all 3 of them, and let me just show you guys how this works before we install it, just because I think it'll be a little bit harder once it's installed. It's actually going to be installed like this, but if we turn it around like this, the dolls can store their glasses and hang them upside down between the pieces of plexiglass, just like they do in a real bar. And if we turn these lights on and turn our piece around, we can place it on top of our bar. It gives us our fully complete bar that lights up, but you guys, the lights up there are illuminating these glasses. Like, the camera is not doing this any justice. Like, in real life, it's so outrageously beautiful, but it's also highlighting how dirty my plexiglass is up there, so I'm definitely gonna have to clean that. And don't worry, you guys, I do have glasses to fill all of these slots right here, but I'm gonna keep that for the big dramatic reveal at the end. But I think it looks literally amazing so far. But I do have these letters that I found at Dollar Tree, and I stuck them to one of my gold 1-inch strips of foam board that says MMT Bar from My Miniature Things Bar. And I wanted to put it right up here, but I don't know, I'm just not feeling it. I feel like it kind of cheapens the whole vibe, like it's not as fancy. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys think it looks better with it or without it? I kind of like without it, so I think I'm just gonna skip it. Now, next up, we definitely need some stools at the bar so the dolls can sit while they're having their drinks. So let's take some wooden dowels. I found this pack of 30 at the dollar store. I cut one of them down to 5.25 and another one to 1.25, and I place it right on the top. And then another piece that measures 1.25 down to the bottom. Add another 5.25 piece to this side, basically giving us a rectangle. Then I cut 4 pieces at 2 inches long, and I'm gonna place one on each corner. So one here, 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 and here. So you should end up with something that looks like this. It kind of looks like a table actually, but it's gonna be to the side like this. And then I make a second rectangle using the same steps that we used to make this rectangle. And I'm just gonna add that to the sides, lining it up onto those pieces that we just installed. So this is gonna be the base of our stool. I'm now gonna spray paint this black and I'll be right back. While that's drying, let's make the seat cushion. Let's start by cutting 2 pieces of foam board down to 2 inches by 3 inches and sticking them together. And to cover it, I'm gonna use this scrap piece of fabric that my sister gave me. I think someone gave it to her and then she gave it to me. So it's kind of like passed down, but I think it's beautiful and it'll match perfectly with our bar. So I cut a piece down to 4.5 by 5 inches and I stick my double piece of foam board to the back side of it in the middle. I'm now going to add glue to all 4 sides of my foam board, and then I'm going to roll the sides of my fabric onto the glue, making sure that when I get to my corners, I add a little bit extra glue and then I pinch it from this side. So all 4 of your corners should end up looking like this, and then we're just going to take our scissors and go right up against the corner and snip it. And make sure that your glue is completely dry before you decide to do this, or else you're going to regret it. Now that all of my corners are snipped, I'm going to fold this part over and pinch it like this. Take my scissors again, and I'm just going to snip that, just so that when it folds over, it's nice and smooth like that, and it's not like bulky, like you're not trying to fold over all of this. And then I can just fold all of my flaps into place, giving me a finished cushion for our stool. Our base is finally dried. Well, actually some parts of it is still wet, but it's okay. Up here is dry, so we can place our cushion right on the top, giving us a finished bar stool that we can place right in front of our bar. And you guys, I don't really like it. I don't know, it's kind of just disappearing there. So I made another one. in a different color. I made it in green and I added some trim around the cushion and then some beads to the top. And I just feel like this one pops a lot more. Doesn't that look so much better? Okay, wait, let me go make a few more and I'll be right back. Okay, I made a couple more of the black and this is what it looks like. And then I made a couple more of the green and this is what it looks like. You guys, the green wins. I'm sorry. I am obsessed with this one. It looks so good. But you guys, we do have a problem. When I designed this set in my head, there was a bar here, then some bathrooms back there, and a seating area in front of the Shark Tank. So clearly I was delusional because I thought all of that was supposed to fit in this little space. And clearly it didn't. So I was gonna leave it just like this, but the bar is now blocking off the Shark Tank, and I feel like we worked so hard on that Shark Tank. I want it to be visible. So I'm gonna add an extension back there so we can keep the original design that I had in my head, and it will also make the Shark Tank more visible. Let's start by extending our back wall. I'm gonna use an entire sheet of foam board that measures 20 inches across by 30 inches tall. And I'm gonna cover it in this green contact paper that I found on Amazon. It's left over from a past project, and I was thinking it was a good way to tie in the green on the stools. Now that I have my wall covered in my contact paper, I'm going to flip it around and draw some doors so that we can make some restrooms for the club. I then cut them out, and they measure about 5 inches wide by 15 inches tall and about 2 inches away from this side with a 3-inch gap in the middle. I put them more towards this side because this is the side that's going to be next to the Shark Tank, and I'm going to put seating and stuff here, so I didn't want the doors right next to the seating. Cut a piece of black foam board down to size, and now we can place that right in the back of our door openings. Cut some 1-inch strips of foam board and cover it in gold craft paper and place it around the frame of our doors. And remember to trim your edges as you go so we get a much cleaner outcome. Cut a couple pieces of gold craft paper that measures 2 inches by 4.5 inches, and we place it right to the bottom of the door to create a kick plate. I then added some of our really tiny hinge screws that we use on the fridge to add a more realistic effect. I cut 2 half-inch strips of foam board down to 4.5 inches, and I cover them in my gold craft paper all the way around. And I place them on the front of my doors to create handles. Next, you're gonna need something round. I'm gonna use a couple of these wood circles that I found at Michael's. Cut a circle of gold craft paper that fits directly over my wooden circle. Cut a 1/4-inch strip of gold craft paper, and I'm just gonna run that along the side so that we cover up all of the wood. Cut a triangle out of black craft paper and place it right on the front. I make 2 of them, and I place them on the front of my doors to indicate to my dolls that these bathrooms are unisex. And you guys, I think I can finally use my letters from the dollar store to make a cute little sign that says restrooms, and I'm just gonna place that right above the doors in the middle. Let's now move the set so that we have space to put the wall, and I'm just gonna place it right over here. I added a black floor in front of it, but it threw off the dimensions of everything, so now the dance floor doesn't fit from the back wall all the way to the front of the bar, and I don't really know what I'm gonna do about that just yet, but for right now, let's focus on making the tables and the stools for in front of the Shark Tank so we can wrap up this section over here and move on to the dance floor. Let's start by cutting a circular wooden dowel down to 7 inches. This one measures about 3/4 inches across, and if you don't have a circular wooden dowel, you can easily just use a paper roll. Add a wooden circle to the bottom. If you don't have a wooden circle, you can easily just use a bottle cap and add your paper tube to the top. I then spray painted my piece gold, and now I'm going to take a larger wooden circle and spray paint it black and place it on the top of our gold piece. And if you don't have a wooden circle, you can use a larger cap or a larger lid and do the same thing, place it on the top. I made 2 of them, and I placed them right under the Shark Tank along with some of the stools that we made earlier for the bar. So now the dolls have a place to sit and enjoy their drinks while they're watching the sharks. So I think this entire section of the club is done. Finally, now we get to move on to the dance floor. So let's start with the DJ booth, and then I'll figure out what we're gonna do with the walls. I cut a black piece of foam board down to 8 inches by 12 inches, and I printed out a bunch of stuff that goes inside of a DJ booth, and you guys, please don't hate me for printing each one on a different piece of paper, but I don't know how to put all of them on the same page. I'm like technology challenged. So I put clear tape over them, and I cut it out and stick it to a piece of foam board, and I trim the edges in my gold craft paper, and I do it for all of my pieces. I then take some tacks that I found at the dollar store, and I'm going to use them to add some 3D elements to our DJ equipment. I'm also going to add some of these gold map pins that I found at Michael's, I want to say. I'm actually not really sure where I got this. I've had this forever. And for this piece, I'm going to take a piece of wire and use my pliers to bend the edge to a right angle like this, and then I'm going to go about 1.5 inches in, and then I'm going to bend it again. So I end up with something that looks like this, and then I'm going to take my wire cutters and I'm going to snip down the side to about 1/2 inch. And now we can place that piece right over our record. And I basically just stuck it in there so it can actually move. I then added them all to my 8 by 10 inch piece of black foam board, and now I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and just cut off this excess. And I trim the edges inches in my gold craft paper, and I also made these little risers that I covered in gold craft paper that we can place in front of our turntables so our little doll DJs have a place to put their laptop when they're DJing. So now that we have our DJ equipment set up, let's make the actual booth itself. I start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 7 inches by 11 1/4 inches. I cover it in a wood grain contact paper and I place it right under the back of my turntables. Now let's place another piece that measures 3 1/4 inches by 7 inches on this side to close that up. Let's now turn it around and flip it over and draw a line that is 1.5 inches from the front edge. You guys, I just realized that I've been telling you guys that this piece was 12 inches wide the whole time, and I thought it was. Now I realize that I actually cut it at 14 inches. So this is 14 inches wide. Like I said, my brain is just not working because I'm under the weather. I'm so sorry. But anyway, back to the line that we drew back here. I cut another piece that measures 7 inches by 14 inches. And I place it right under that line. I then made a box and I covered the top of it and one side of it in my wood grain contact paper. It measures 14 inches across by 6 3/4 inches deep by 3 inches tall. Let's now take our piece with our turntables and place it right on the front edge of the box. So you should end up with a piece that looks like this. And you guys know in the club how the DJ booths have like LED screens in the front of it? I kind of want to try to attempt to do that with my iPad. So I cut a piece of foam board down to 14 inches by 11 inches. And I drew lines where I want my screen to be. And I cut it out, covered the entire front in my wood grain contact paper. And then in the back, I just covered the top part. And now we can flip it around and place it right in front of our DJ booth, lining it up with the floor. For the side, we are going to use a piece that measures 8 1/4 inches by 11 inches, and I covered the front in my contact paper, and again, the back, just the top portion, and we're going to flip it like this and place it right on the side. Then to finish up the other side, I'm going to cut a piece that measures 4 3/4 inches by 11 inches, and I do the same thing again, just covering the front and a little bit on the top, and then we just place that on the side. I then cleaned up all of my edges in my gold craft paper, and you guys, this took it to a whole nother level. Now let's take it to another level, you guys, and add some plexiglass to the front of our DJ equipment, just in case there's some doll drama and drinks start flying. The equipment will be protected. And I add the plexiglass to all 3 sides. And now it's time we can actually insert the iPad. So let's see if my calculations were right. This should be able to fit right up in here. You guys, oh my god, oh my god. I literally don't have words. This is amazing. I then made a little box to match our DJ booth, and I'm just gonna place that right on the side here to create a little step so that the dolls can easily access the DJ booth. I think for now though, we're gonna leave the iPad out of it just because my phone is connected to it. So if I leave it in there, it might be kind of annoying. But now that we are done with the DJ booth, let's start working on our back walls. I covered a piece of foam board in green craft paper, but for me, it's a little bit too plain. So I cut another piece that measures 2 inches by 30 inches, and I cover it in my wood grain contact paper, cut 1/4 inch strips of gold paper and run it along the sides to clean it up a bit. And after doing that on both sides, I take 3 more strips of 1/4 inch gold paper and I stuck them to my strip of foam board in the middle about 1/4 inch apart, but unfortunately my gold strips didn't reach all the way to the bottom. So I cut and cover a piece of foam board that measures 2.5 inches by 3 inches, cut 2 more pieces that measure 1/4 inch by 3 inches, and I stick them on either side of my 3 by 2.5 inch piece. Clean up my edges with gold craft paper, and then I can take this piece and just slide it over the 30 inch piece to cover up where the strips didn't meet the bottom. We can now place it on the edge of our wall to amp it up a bit. I repeated to make another one for the other side, and now I'm just gonna place this against the side of the back wall, lining it up with the front corner of the floor, giving us an angled wall. I then made another one, and I'm just gonna place this one right back here. Okay, you guys, this is looking amazing so far. I am so happy with it. Now all that's left to be done is the VIP area, so let's start working on that. For the walls, I'm gonna use these shopping bags that I found at the dollar store. I just cut them down to size, and I stick them directly onto my foam board. I then added some gold trim to the top, giving me my walls for my VIP. And you guys, my gift bag were only about from where this gold line is up here to where it ends down here. But don't worry, the VIP boots are going to be wrapping around this section right here, so you're not going to see this part right here. And yes, I did have to extend a little bit more. I added like an extra 5 inches. This club is massive. So let's start making our VIP booths. I start by cutting an L shape out of my foam board. This is going to be the side of one of the couches in our VIP. This side here measures 6 inches, and so does this side. this piece right here, this side measures 4 inches, this measures 3 inches, and this measures 2 inches. I cut 2 of those. Then I cut a piece that measures 3 inches by 13 inches, and I place it right on the side of my L-shaped piece that measures 3 inches. And then I place my other L-shaped piece on the other side. Cut another piece that measures 2 inches by 13 inches and place it right on the top to connect our L-shaped foam board. So by now you should have a piece that looks like this. This is going to be the frame for our VIP couch. Now let's make the cushions. Cut a piece of foam board down to 4 1/4 inches by 13 1/4 inches. Then place it on a piece of batting that's about 1/2 inch bigger than my foam board on all sides. I then cut a piece of fabric down to size. I got this piece again from my sister. I think it was the same person who gave her the other piece that we made the stools with. Place it over the batting, and then we are going to roll the fabric and stick it to the other side, making sure that the batting rolls with it so we get a nice curved edge like this. And when you get to your corners, you want to snip off all of this extra batting so that you're not trying to fold all of that over. So snip off like from the corner of your foam board, measure about 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch out, and snip that off. And for the fabric, when you get to the corner, you're going to put some hot glue around the inside and a little bit on the corner right here. Pinch it together, and then you're going to pull this corner downwards and stick it onto the foam board like that. So it should end up looking something like this. It's not the prettiest thing in the world from underneath, but when you turn it to the side, it's cute. And I do that for all 4 of my corners, and now I can place it on my couch frame to create a seat cushion. For the backrest, I cut a piece that measures 2 1/2 inches by 13 1/4 inches. I then covered it the same way that we did the seat cushion, and I place it on the back of my VIP couch. I repeated all those steps to make 2 smaller ones. These are also 6 inches tall, but the back of them are a little bit shallower. They're only 1 inch, and they are 7 inches long. Now I want to put this together like this, so we need to figure out a way to close up those gaps on the side so that it looks like a booth. So let's cut a piece of foam board down to 6 1/2 by 5 3/4, and then we cut a second piece of foam board down to 1 inch by 6 1/2, and then I place my 1 inch piece on top of this piece on the side that measures 6 1/2. Let's now glue it to the side of our long couch. I then made a smaller cushion that measures 2 1/2 inches by 4 inches, and we can just place that right over here. I then repeated it for the other side, and now we have a booth, not just any booth, a VIP booth. I placed it in the corner, and I made another one, and now we have a VIP section. And for the tables, I was thinking we can use these toothbrush holders that I found at Ross. Place a dollar store coaster right on the top, and voila, we have a gorgeous VIP table. I then trimmed it in my gold craft paper to really take it to that next level, and now I'm gonna go decorate the rest of the club, and I'll be right back with the finished product. I added Paris Hilton as the DJ, and this is what I got. Oh my God, you guys. I am so obsessed. It came out so much better than I expected. And I know I always say this, but you guys, it's the truth. Like, I have never made a bar or a club scene before, so I had no idea what to expect going into it. And now that I have one, I'm so happy. The best part for me was the little VIP area. Obviously the bar was like, you know, the main focus and like the coolest part of it. But the funnest part of it for me was the VIP area. I loved it. Oh, and the DJ booth. Loved it. But I want to hear from you guys. Which part of our club that we built today was your favorite? Leave it down in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.